Listen live now and on demand at omniaudio.africa.
So this is another episode of Real, Raw and Relatable with me, Romy Titus, and I have none other than the legendary Deshi Bhaktawer in the hot seat today as we literally go back in time and see the life that he's lived, a very rich life, from the football pitch to the television screen as an analyst, as a businessman as well, and a man that I have had the pleasure of working with on the touchline. Deshi.
So have I, Romy. Thank you. It's lovely to see you again.
It's good to be in your company, Deshi. We've always had the greatest laughs. If I think about me, you, Marks Mapunyane, and Dwayne DeLocca.
Correct. Yeah.
Lots of laughs.
There was always lots of laughs. It wasn't always me. Yeah.
That's for sure.
Martha had his fair share as well.
Definitely. But it just takes me back, I guess, to the SABC days. Did you ever think that your life as football would land you in the hot seat on television, giving analysis to the rest of South Africa on the sport?
You know, it never really did. But I think from a very young age, I always analyze things. You know, particularly being a goalkeeper, because you got to try and see things before they happen. And I spent lots of time with other people, older people, more experienced, who would analyze my game and break it down for me. So I think I always had that little bit of analytical side to it. And I quite enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it because it's in the blood. Your father was a goalkeeper. You're a goalkeeper. Your brother is a goalkeeper. In the blood, in your DNA?
Correct. I think, it always was. You know, I watched my brother, and he was a really good goalkeeper, but I think the times weren't right. And funny thing is, he started training with a guy who coached me all my life, years before I started working with this guy. He was the old South African goalkeeper, Springbok goalkeeper, Trevor Gethin. And my brother had worked with him for a few months, long before I did. I've also learned those lessons in life, that the world is just such a small place. All over the world, you'll meet people that you know through somebody else, you know.
True.
So, and that's happened to me too.
They say we're all related, I think, by 6 degrees or something.
Yes.
You know, it could possibly be true.
Yes, funny you say that. I heard that just the other day. Yeah, exactly that. And as I say, I mean, I've met people in Spain that I had, for instance, criticized while watching them here play football 10, 12 years before I met them personally.
Wow.
So, yeah.
It is a small place.
It's a terribly, terribly small place. You've got to be so careful what you say and do.
I was about to say no to you because you said whom you've criticized watching playing, right? And then you meet them down the line. Is it a bitter pill to swallow? Because like you said, you have that analytical mind. You then join SABC Sport for that gift that you have, you know, to give the analysis of the sport. Do you think it's a fine line in terms of what you say about a player when you're doing the analysis?
Yes. When I do it publicly, I'm very careful about criticism, because you've done it all your life and you know exactly how hard it is and difficult to predict the next situation in a particular game. So you really don't want to criticize people, you know, publicly. And I think you got to watch that side of it. So when I criticized these players, it was people I'd just watched, you know, as
But are you criticizing playing style, or are you criticizing the person? Because I think there's a difference.
Yes. The one boy I criticized, and I'd watched him play for many years as a Portuguese international. He was playing, I think, when Ronaldo just started, but he was more the Figo time. And my wife's of Portuguese descent, so obviously I'd watch Portugal with my father-in-law, and this boy played up front, and I criticized him quite a lot. I often used to say, can't understand why they play him. Then 10, 15 years later, in Madrid, in the mountains of Madrid, he walks into our dining hall.
Wow.
Plays for us, and after a couple days on the field with him, I then saw the class of the person. You know, like he played up front, but he's like 3-4 steps ahead. So before the ball comes to him, he knows where it's going to go. He knows where he's going to go, and he's got an additional option. You know,
That's a gift.
and incidentally, I must tell you, I had to go in goal one morning, and because the French goalkeeper hadn't arrived, and he had a shot, and I was in goal, and I just stuck my arm out,
Yeah.
and it felt like my entire arm had come
Had
out of
left
its
your body.
socket and was lying in the back of the goal.
Gee whiz.
You know? So, yeah. No, he was really good, man. And every weekend he went home to Porto, which was a 35-minute flight from where we were based. When he came back on a Sunday morning, he'd come straight to me with a bottle of port. You know, that's his speciality.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. I've actually, got pictures with him at
Nice.
training and stuff like that.
Amazing. Tell me about your time. I mean, in Spain. Let's start there.
Loved it. The work ethic of the Spanish is absolutely unbelievable. There is not a minute unaccounted for. And don't forget, we had 2 boys play for Liverpool. Garcia was our first captain. With a boy played for Real, grew up at Real, Borja Fernandes. He played with David Beckham when Beckham went to Real. With a boy grew up at Barcelona, Joffrey, refused to take a team photo with us when we won the first competition in India with a Spanish flag. So he got up and ran off.
Yeah.
And the boy from Real chased after him, you know. Also a great player. We had Czechoslovakian international, Slovenian. We had a goalkeeper from PSG, Adel Bete, who grew up in Cameroon, played for Armenia as his national team.
Yeah.
And I never knew the story until he told me that his folks worked in Armenia. He grew up there. And obviously became naturalized Armenian with the time spent there. And then played for the country.
Okay.
And when we finished working, he played in Israel for Maccabi Haifa. Because I remember him calling me from Israel to let me know
Where he is.
that's where he was.
How
you know.
did you end up there, though, Deshi? And did
I
you
got a
think
call.
that is where you would go? Because obviously there's Arcadia Shepherds. You've worked with various clubs, Supersport United being one of them as well. And off you go.
Yeah, it was through a mate of mine. And the call came. I was at Rigel Avenue on the motorway. And I got this call, and they said, would you like to go to Spain and India? Actually, they said Madrid in India. And I said, yes. No questions asked, nothing. And I then just took it one day at a time. And I started working out in the gym daily. And thankfully I did. The little work I did there helped me. Because in Spain, the Spanish coaches, pre-season would do the running under the clock with the players.
Oh, wow.
So 10 times around
The pitch.
they would do it. So...
How are we that behind us, South Africa? If you had to compare then and even now.
Yeah, so, when I compare it, because not long after I worked with Owen de Gama at the Olympics, and obviously all South African boys, for me, one of the most striking differences was, here we've got players that have won the biggest championships in the world. The one, Osami Reyes, had won the Champions League with Liverpool and got to the semi-finals with Sabija, I think. And, I mean, these people, you don't have to tell them. Straight after every single training session, straight after every game, you're in the ice bath. You don't have to...
Beg and plead.
All the Indians, the Spanish, they know what they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, with our Olympic team, we at times struggled to get everybody in an ice bath straight afterwards. It would be, oh yes, I've been, but you
haven't been.
Hadn't.
Yeah. Is it a mindset? Is it a work ethic? How do you compare South Africa then to the rest of the world? A lot of the times you heard, maybe a little less so nowadays, but you always hear, oh, South Africa is so far behind. We're so far behind. When you take a look at a league like ours, which is touted to be the best on the African continent,
yes.
Yet internationally, if you had to compare to Europe, for example, that we are so far behind.
I've always felt there are reasons for things. Bottom of the league clubs, there's a reason they're there. And I've often felt that starts in the boardroom, And I felt there are reasons for countries being good and not so good, And I think it's the work ethic. For instance, Luis Garcia, when he arrives at training, yes, we'll stand by the goal and they'll have a little chat. But he's got his resistant band, and he's doing his little exercise.
No time is wasted.
And he's already achieved everything possible, or most of it. And I think it's the work ethic. I think sometimes as South Africans we're a little bit spoilt. And we look for easier ways out. And in life, I don't think there are easy ways.
There's no shortcuts, right? Yeah.
And if you're looking for those and you think you found those...
Please let me know.
Yeah. No, and you just won't make it. It's just the way life works. You've got to put in the work. It doesn't matter what you do.
I take it you put in the work, Deshi, for your successes over the years, that hasn't come easy. Take me through the mind of a goalkeeper, because innately I think goalkeepers are different. You're not an infield player. You're trained differently, right? There's different things you're looking out for. Your training is different from that to the infield players, outright. I mean, they're talking about strikers getting their own training as well, getting their own coach, like goalkeeper coaches, for example. But take me through the mind of a goalkeeper.
They call us dumb and daft. It's different. I'll tell you a story. Maybe they can edit out later.
You can drop all the F-bombs. It's also okay.
So I've been wearing dentures since I was 27 years old.
What?
Because I had my teeth kicked out. One was a knee and one was a full-blooded kick.
Ouch.
And it lasted for about 27 years. And when I was in India, funny enough, the walls of the dentures just collapsed. And that was it. I had no dentures. But at least the Spanish Indian club were kind enough to pay for a whole
To
new
assist
set
you.
of dentures.
Okay, good. Your
which I
smiling's
had
good,
done there.
Deshi.
It wouldn't have changed my looks, I can assure you.
Different, how else though? Because I think it is a different skill. And I remember doing a Super Sports United media day. You were in the goals with Ronwin, and obviously we were leaving already, and you guys were still busy. And I said, we had a quick chat, and I remember I was like, oh, so you're still busy? Yes, working with Ronwin. And your words to me was, he is special. And I left the pitch thinking,
So
okay.
I'm psychic now.
I
too.
think so. Because, I mean, I leave the pitch and I don't think anything of it, right?
Yeah.
Ronwin wasn't in a Bafana setup at the time. He wasn't getting all the game time like we see him now in his prime. And I ask you the question as to how innately different is a goalkeeper, because you happen to be able to see the talent before it is that talent blossoms into perhaps what we as fans get to see.
You know, I think one of these qualities is the authority, you know, that when he's in goal, that clearly comes across. And if he steps out of his goal, it's different. I think that the fact that he demanded from the people in front of him what he wanted, and he was just such a talent. He was agile. He had all of those characteristics. And, he was a special kid too. Let me ask you if you've ever seen Ronwin take a free kick outside the opposition's box. Or let me tell you, he was, even in that department, he was world class.
I think he gets an assist this season for a goal.
Yes, he played a early ball through.
Yeah.
Yes, I saw that.
He also got his first red card ever
well,
this
I've been
season.
sent off.
And I actually asked him, I said, how do you feel? He said, I feel like crying. This is my first red card ever, you know?
Yeah, you get sent off and you lose it a bit. You know, goalkeepers, we quite vociferous and we have to be. And often your instruction also needs to be short and sharp and, you know, one-word instructions.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do that with the referees. Yeah. And but afterwards, like Ronwin says, I mean, do you want to sit down in a corner and you won't eat properly for 2 or 3 days afterwards? You won't sleep properly. And you think you've lost your place.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It must be hard. I mean, also at that level. He also went on and won the CAF award. It was the goalkeeper of the year award. And then goes ahead and thanks every single goalkeeper coach that he has ever worked with.
Yeah, I was a little surprised, I've got to say, pleasantly. Actually, I shouldn't have been. That's Ronnie. I mean, that's, you know, he never forgets things. He always remember it. And winning that award, I didn't think that there was any other choice. There was nobody else.
Right, yeah.
He was head and shoulders above most of the goalkeepers in Africa, all of them. You know, so, and stopping those 4 penalties.
That was amazing.
I mean,
That spider sense. It's why I ask you again the question, like innately, you guys are different. You know, you get to play with your hands as well. That makes you different from the rest of the players.
Yes.
But to know where to go, how? I mean, Deshi, you the goalkeeper coach, like impart some of that knowledge.
You know, we started looking at it in India in more detail. And I had started working with goalkeepers' peripheral vision. I did a bit of boxing, even with Adele. And because I felt penalty takers, if you approach the ball and you're going to go across yourself, you've got to open your non-kicking foot. That foot's got to move. And I always felt that if you're watching the non-kicking foot, that's going to give you an idea as to where to go. But I think Ronnie was a little sharper than that. I think his reflexes must be almost near perfect, for him to make those stops. So many of them as well. But I still sincerely believe that penalties, especially now where the run-up to the ball is not quick and sharp, and it's now stop-start, and keepers don't always hold it until the last minute.
But I guess it's a gamble, right? Isn't it?
You know,
could
in my
prepare,
day,
but it's a gamble.
In my day, it always was, because it's such a short distance, and you don't have much time. And we weren't as developed as the goalkeepers are today. So I think in my day, I talk like it's like
In your
200 years.
It wasn't so long ago.
In our day, I think we chose a side to dive, and we do research on the teams we're playing against and who their penalty takers are. And stuff like that. Today, I just think it's so much more advanced, the training methods, and that develops other skills. Like I just said, Ronnie's reflexes, I think they must be very close to 100%.
Wow. Deshi, goalkeeping, obviously, as we said, in the DNA, right? Your brother played, your dad played, you played. Was it something you always wanted to do? Or was there always this is my hobby, I'm going to be a businessman?
Funny you asked that question. Driving here today, I thought about it. And I thought, why did I persist with it? Because I got to Arcadia when I was 13, 14. And I was thinking, driving here, about those times. Why did I keep going? Who's to know it wasn't a complete waste of time? And in those days, it was fuel, and I used to catch a bus to the Caledonian, and somebody had to pick me up in the evenings or at night. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just commitment or the people I worked with and couldn't let them down. And we worked hard. Even then, my coach, the old park benches, the sort of roundish ones. I can tell you those really hurt when you dive into them. Because we would have to dive over it.
So if you don't dive over, you're into it.
You start on the one side, the ball gets thrown to the other side, you've got to dive over it. And even if the service isn't right, you end up too close to the bench. And that's
that didn't
happened.
deter you?
Not at all. I think I was anything then, maybe. I wanted to win, and funny enough, at Arcadia, the first boss was a guy called Kai Johansson. Kai was a Dane, played his football for the Rangers in Glasgow, and made a huge name and impact for himself there, and then came out to Arcadia as player coach. And I remember at one Colts game. In the old days, we had under 19s, which were Colts.
Okay.
Very much like in England. he'd come down to watch the game, and at half-time, he walked into our change room and kicked the door shut behind him, and then asked us if we remembered who had won the league or who had come second in the league last year. And his point was, nobody remembers people that don't win. You know, so much so that I don't even play board games at home with my wife, and I stopped that years ago.
You're just way too competitive?
We were both a little bit like that, wanted to win all the time. But
was it the love, though? Was it the love of the game?
I think that is, you know, it's also adrenaline, I think, and your belief that you can win and you will win. I think there's something about that, and no one's going to beat me, or no one's going to score a goal.
Is that your mantra for life, pretty much? As you take a look at the years to where you are now, that you said you were going to go to Spain, you were going to be an analyst, you were going to be the best goalkeeping coach that you could possibly be, that whatever it is you set out to do, it was about sticking to it and making a success out of it.
Do you know, I never really had proper pictures in my mind, but I had the belief, I had the faith. I knew that I was going to go somewhere and work with these people, and it also taught me quite a bit about life. You know, doesn't matter who you are, what you've done or achieved. At my place of work, I pick up litter all the time. You know, but I learned it from these people in Spain. When we played friendlies in Spain and we'd travel to opposition's home ground, we get there and the change rooms are absolutely spotless. When we finish the game, you can just imagine the change rooms are a complete mess. Do you know all those top players are on their knees like us, cleaning the floors?
I like that.
And we leave those change rooms
Like you found it.
absolutely spotless. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be walking out with our black garbage bags and looking for the bins outside.
I'd report that Bafana are the same. They will arrive at the F&B in a spotless change room, and they will leave it spotless.
That's brilliant.
As well.
Yeah.
Your proudest moment?
There's been so many.
Okay, I
making
changed my
debut.
question. Your proudest moments?
You know, there's just been so many good moments. But I think making my debut for Arcadia, I was 17, I think. And they were looking to sign all the top goalkeepers in the country, and it all fell through. And we were playing Chiefs in the top 8 competition, and some of the players in the team went to the boss and said, you know, do you really think you'll be able to do this? And I was really good, I thought, even if I may say so.
You may.
And I conceded a goal, but that was a penalty. But I may in jest say in those years, Chiefs got a lot of penalties.
Your most embarrassing moment?
Playing against Bloemfontein Celtic in Pretoria. And in the first minute, a cross came in from the left side and went right through my hands into the back of the goal.
Why would that be most embarrassing, though?
Conceding a goal I should never have conceded.
And everybody else? Because I always think, right, you're the last line of defense,
Yeah.
right? We're the defenders. Where's everybody else? Why is
Yes.
everybody else not helping? That I always feel so sorry for a goalkeeper
Yeah.
when anything does happen of that nature. But then I'm like, where's
We-
everybody else?
We learn very quickly to say, where were you? So when they turn around and say, what were you doing? You then quickly reply, where were you?
I guess.
And that's,
how
look,
it goes.
there's a lot of arguing and fighting on the field, which is sometimes gets quite nasty. Sometimes it's with your roommate, and you've got to go back to your hotel this evening.
And back to the roommate.
Yeah, but you learn very quickly that what's said and even sometimes done is over within the next 2 minutes. It's gone, finished, forgotten.
What is life's lesson that you've learned or that football has taught you?
I often say this, to work. It's only work that'll get you through and get you to see the success and the rewards. If you don't work, it's not going to happen. Not going to fall in your lap. You've actually got to do it. You know. So to this day, I mean, I'm at work every single day.
What do you do now, Deshi?
I run a little restaurant, or work in it rather. There's 3 or 4 people involved, and that's what I do. I really enjoy it because.
But you're a people's person, so I do
and
understand
that's-
that.
Yeah, and let me tell you a funny story. I started there a couple of years ago, and it's a cycling trail as well as a walk-in running. It's where I run in the mornings in a little forest, and became friends with these cyclists and went on holiday with them.
Only
And
Deshi.
that was it. Loved it. Yeah. So I quite enjoy meeting different people. I've met some wonderful, wonderful people.
And I'm sure they recognize you.
Yes, they do. Now they say, geez, where do I know that face from? And then it's amazing that often when you speak, people say,
I know you.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but
And so do you find you're reciting your story, your life, what you've done?
you know what, it gets
It's
a
a
bit
new
tired.
it's a new audience though.
It is, but yeah, my wife gets tired of it. I know she complains bitterly, but I've stopped talking about it. Some of the things I've told you today, I haven't spoken about for years.
Why, Deshi? Why don't we see a book on the shelves? And I mean, even sitting here talking to you, you're very okay telling me the stories of everyone else you've worked with, even though you're in the spotlight today, you know, that I almost feel like your contribution, you're pretty shy of sharing when it is so massive and so immense. Hence, you sit here before me today, having offered so much of yourself.
You know, I think it's also the way you grow up, and credit I'm happy to give to everybody else. I'll take the criticism, okay, because that would make me better.
But does it still make you better in a world where I guess football is almost, it's over, it's still a part of your life, but that chapter,
Yes.
you know, has closed, a new
Yes.
one has opened. That, why not take the flowers? Take the flowers, Deshi.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I'm much rather happier, you know, you go, off you go, well done, you know. And tell me the mistakes. I've always felt that, you know, it brings to mind a story. I was young, 18, and there was a former English international, Dave Barber, who used to help me with my game. So Dave would watch my game on the Friday night or the Saturday, and then we'd talk about it the next morning. And he told me about after a game, if you're picking up your date for dinner or whatever, and you've got to wait keep a notebook and make notes of what you think you did wrong. And I kept a clean sheet that day.
Picking up your date?
That too, yeah. And I was sitting in my car making these notes. And I had 18 points, 18 mistakes in that game. And Dave said to me the next day he didn't think I made those many mistakes. And I said, no, I did. If it's a kick, it goes wrong, a throw, whatever it may be, you know, if you got off the wrong foot for a cross or something, all of those. So
Did you celebrate what you did right?
in my own quiet way. So I would happily go and sit down for a meal by myself in the corner of a restaurant, you know. So for me, it was fine. I always thought the next game. So when we'd win something, even in your change room, you're thinking about next week, you know, and there's another game coming next.
So you're only as good as your last game, and you were more worried about what you needed to fix versus what went right.
Correct. Yeah. I liked getting things right. You know, even when I was coming to the end of my career, I worked on trying to get more height for the crosses. And we discovered a little short step. There was another Dave Jones, that helped me with that, you know. So
Dave's helped you pave the way.
yeah, they have, yeah. They have, funny enough, yeah. So, yeah, you just never stop working. There's so much. There's always things to learn.
You're right. When did your career come to an end? When did you decide enough is enough?
I was 34. I was at Pretoria City, which became Super Sport. And I just thought it was time to move on.
How,
you know?
how did you know?
I was tired. You get really tired really quickly, but not physical tired.
Because, 34 is quite young for a goalkeeper, isn't it?
It is, but I'd been playing since I was 16, you know, at that level, and the pressure. I think it's the pressure as well. It gets too much. And thankfully, I was very fortunate because as I stopped, SuperSport asked me, Shane McGregor asked me if I wouldn't want to be his assistant coach. And that's what I did. I played one game when I was 35.
Were you in and out of retirement like Andre Arendse?
No. It was just one game. It was 95, I remember it, because it was straight after the Rugby World Cup final. And our goalkeeper, our current goalkeeper then, had a close allegiance to the New Zealand team. Just going to say that. And spent the night with them. And needless to say, was not able to play the next day.
Correct.
So I remember Shane asking me, will I play? And I thought, geez, I don't know if I can still do this. But it was an important second division game. We were away and we had to win it. And we won it 1-0. So, yeah, I was quite happy with that.
It was a good way. It was a good way to say goodbye.
Yeah.
What happens after that, though, Deshi? What happened to you after saying goodbye to the game, still being a part of the game, however, but not as a player? Is there a light that goes off? Is there a bit of a depression that sinks in? Is there do you go back to the table and the loneliness, where you work things through in your mind, the good and the bad? Or is there a Dave holding your hand, helping you?
I gotta say, I was very fortunate because it never really ended. From Supersport, I spent 2 years there coaching. Incidentally, I had my eye cut at one morning training session because we didn't have a good goalkeeper, and I went in goal. I had 16 stitches in there, and
ouch, in your eye.
Over there, yeah.
Hey, no.
And I remember going back to my work then, and my wife looked at it and she said, "No, you need stitches." And popped down to the hospital and got 16 stitches in there. But when I finished at Supersport, it was straight into television. And I was there for 19 years.
Wow.
So I spent my whole life in football.
But is there a disconnect, or were you too busy to feel that disconnect? I guess it's like it's a camp, it's training, it's wake up in the morning, it's be there at a certain time, it's that routine. And I guess you're a businessman as well, right? You
Correct.
had hair salons on the side, so it wasn't just football that was a focus.
Yeah, I also, when I was 24, I think, and I'd come back from overseas, I was in the sports business. So I eventually had 23. Doesn't make a difference.
In the 20s.
Yeah. I started a sports shop, and then had 2 sports shops, and had a factory. So the garments we sold, we made ourselves.
Amazing.
So I've always been in business, quite enjoyed it. I think a lot of what I studied was the business side of things.
What did you study?
I did a 4-year course, but I'll tell you, my major was accounting. Mm-hmm. And I remember my mate calling me. I was in England, and I'll never forget where I was. I was on the top of a stairway, one of those old phones. Mm-hmm. And I'd called my mate because I'd asked him to check my marks just outside my lecturer's office.
So you studied in the UK?
No, at Wits.
At Wits, okay.
Yeah. And I failed my major.
Oh dear.
And I never had the time or the inclination, I have to say, to redo it. I got 49%.
Oh no, I know that feeling. And you just needed a percentage to pass.
Correct.
1%, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that feeling. I know it all too well.
But it's fine. When you look back, it was a great experience. I learned lots of things then too. Mm-hmm. And the accounting side was brilliant for me.
Okay. So it was businesses that kept you busy, football literally from player and then flung into SABC and doing the analysis. I had no idea that was almost 2 decades that you did that for, Deshi.
Yeah.
I guess one that definitely comes to mind is Good Enough Sithole.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'd met him, and I used to see him quite a few times. Mm-hmm. When we eventually found him, he was living in Joburg, in Braamfontein, in fact. No running water.
Oh no.
No power, electricity.
How did that interview come about? The one that went viral that everybody remembers to this day.
Yeah, it was a Vodacom scripted. A Vodacom issue. They were giving away phones or something at that stage. What was it called? Pushy Passion.
Yes.
That's what it was called. And somebody used to choose a person out the crowd.
Yeah,
and
probably the
bring
floor
them
manager.
down,
Yeah,
to where you, as you well know. And then you've got to interview him. But that particular interview, I remember, before they crossed to us, I leaned over and I said to him, what language do you want to speak in? That was what I said. Because I'd always primed my producers, and I said, look, if somebody speaks a language I don't quite understand, just give me one word from there, you know? And nobody said anything. Nobody said a word because I heard everybody laughing in the van. So
In your earpiece.
yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I just heard people laughing. And so much so, they started counting me down from 10. They'd forgotten the first 10.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
So, and I had the coaches to do after that. So you don't even think.
Yeah, there's too
You're
much going on.
thinking of,
There's too much going
what
on.
the next thing is. So that was that.
Yeah, shame. Rest in peace. You know, poor.
Yeah, he was a
Willie
good man.
Sithole.
I used to meet him in Midrand, take him. We organised a little 60th, he called it, at Cappuccino's in South Downs. Got a cake for him, had a few people around. And, and you know, he never went to school. He followed pirates since he was a little kid.
Oh,
Yeah,
a diehard
complete.
Pirates fan.
It's got to be said, they were also good to him.
Yeah.
You know, they were very good to him.
What other memorable moments do you have from the touchline, from traveling the country as an analyst with the national broadcaster?
I'll tell you what, maybe not television, but working with our national team, with Trot. We went on a Caribbean tour. And Brian Beloy and I had a picture taken outside Bob Marley's house. And we then went inside, and one of the Wailers guitarists was in the yard smoking his, whatever he smokes,
his
you
vitamin
know.
greens.
And and then I asked them to take me into Bob Marley's bedroom. They took me in, but at that stage, his sons had converted it to recording studios.
Okay,
you know.
okay.
So for me, that,
Was a moment.
yeah, don't you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Because in my head, I was like, recording studio? Like, where's
Yeah.
the single bed, you know?
I'll tell you another funny thing. In that yard was a old Jeep type thing, and I remember a video of one of Bob Marley's songs. That Jeep on the beach, okay, kids playing
Yeah.
in the back while the Jeep
It's
was
going,
driving
yeah.
along with a beach ball. I remember that clearly.
Oh, wow.
And that Jeep was parked in
In
that
the yard. Oh, wow. That's goosebump moment things.
Yeah. No, that was good.
Hit me with another one.
Actually, on that same trip, there's a lot that happened. On the flight from Miami to Trinidad, I was on the same flight as the Miss Universe girls and the lady that had the rights to it. In fact, I didn't sit too far from her.
Okay.
And when we came back to Miami, who's the guy? Glover?
Danny
Danny
Glover?
Glover. Was he one of the two policemen or detectives in the series of movies
Which movie?
with Mel Gibson?
Oh, Lord. Not good with movies, but possibly.
So as I'm walking in the airport, out he walks directly past me, and he says, "Oh, South Africa, hey?" And I think he'd just been to South Africa at that time. and he would have seen all the South African clothing.
Yeah.
all of that.
Flags,
Yeah, and he was
uniform.
dressed, it was hot as hell, but he was dressed in this huge overcoat, collars up, covering his face, you know. So all of that, now that I think of it, happened on one trip.
Deshi, where's your book?
I don't know if I've got the time or
It's
the patience.
time.
Yeah.
It really is time. You know, you've got such
Would be
rich
nice.
stories to tell that for it just to be documented for time immemorial, I think is
Yeah, I've got some stories to tell.
is well worth it.
Yeah. Let me tell you when I had to learn Spanish. So Garcia started teaching me, or he helped, like he'd learned English when he went to Liverpool, and got me into lots of trouble.
Because he
With
taught
our
you all the
bus driver,
wrong words. Yeah.
With all the ladies that worked in our hotel. So, yeah.
What has family life been, or the balance thereof? Because while you're out,
Yes.
football requires a lot of travel. Being abroad, obviously, as
Yes.
well, you're away from home. You're not born in South Africa, but South Africa is your home base and your home. How does that affect, I guess, the family unit? And how do you keep it together? How do you keep it a unit?
So, yeah, I missed the kids growing up, but I think I got a chance to make some of it up with my son. He is a 11-year-old. Started insisting he wanted to race motorbikes. And I left this and left it and left it. And eventually, coming to the teenage years, I thought, whoops, you know, troubled times.
Yeah.
You've got to keep him busy. And there was nothing like motor racing because, I mean, from the moment you get on that motorbike, your life's in your hands.
Correct.
So you can't be spending nights before drinking and partying and all of that. And I had one condition with him. I said, all right, we'll do it, but we got to do it properly. That means we will work at it until we win in races. And so we, every Saturday, Sunday, even during the week, some Wednesdays, we would travel to Midvaal and him and I would work. Oh, well, he'd do the work, I'd keep the times.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and that was last 7 years. That gave me some time with him.
Nice.
Yeah.
Some bonding
But
time.
you've got to say the damage isn't always fixed, you know.
Because you can't get back the time.
No, you can't. It's gone.
Yeah.
And it goes so quickly.
I know, yeah.
It's so quickly. But yeah, suppose, look, it's what do you do? I mean, it's your job.
Did you have, I mean, getting married?
Yeah.
I'm sure your wife already knew this is what I'm signing up for.
Yes. Yeah.
And here we go.
Yeah, my wife's quite a tough woman. And, you know, I have to say she was the right person for me when I look back now. Kept me in check, too. I think she'd say that. But, yeah, no, she was good. She was strong mentally, emotionally. And
But you have to let me in on the love story.
you know what, it was Dave Barber.
Another Dave?
no,
or the
that-
same Dave?
That same Dave. Well, he started it. He'd walked in to my shop.
Which one? Sport shop?
Yeah, the sports
Okay.
shop. And it was one morning. And she had just arrived. she worked in a gym quite close to me. And I introduced her, and he said to, look, I'm terribly sorry, but I'm never going to remember your name. So I'm just going to call you Fred.
Okay.
And that stuck, you know. But it was from those days that we started getting together. So this was in the 80s, which is a long time ago. Yeah. And now I've got 3 kids, 4 grandkids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that keeps you going.
Yeah.
But it drives you, you know, it gives you so much to live for.
Did no one follow in the footballing footsteps with obviously your dad and your brother, you playing football?
My son came to me. He was older. He was chosen for Northern Transvaal, as it was known then, as the under 10 goalkeeper or something. And what actually happens is, first thing people ask the kids is, are you going to be as good as your dad? Whether your dad's good or not, you know. And this happened at his awards thing. And that was said quite publicly. And he never really took to it. You know. He did ask me years later, don't you want to work with me? And we did for a bit, but it had come and gone, you know. And I believe everyone finds their own path.
You're okay with that? You didn't want a son that followed
Not
in your
at all.
footsteps? Okay.
I've always said to my wife, since they were little, both of them, I said, we will not go to school sport and scream and shout. We will sit in a corner
And be quiet.
and leave the coaches to get on with their jobs, you know. And that's the way I did it. But when I look back, I got to say I should have got a little bit more involved, you know.
But you've got the grandkids.
I have.
So time is not lost.
1 boy, 3 girls.
Cute.
And the boy, 2.5, he's already watching MotoGP and he sits and watches it.
Okay.
So he's
that way
already
inclined.
into his dad was the racer.
And the girls?
The girls, my daughter was a model, which she didn't enjoy, and she studied, she's got a degree in the business side of fashion. And she's got 2 daughters, and
And they like girly things.
yeah, very
Pink and glitter.
yeah, but just, you know, when they start saying things, and it's just the cutest at times.
Yeah. If you had a magic wand dish and you could wave it to change probably anything in football, what would it be?
Change us, yeah, and change. I think a setup administratively needs to, from time to time, be revitalized and changed, you know. New people, I've always believed, in any situation, come along with new ideas. And yes, not all of them work, but even from the ones that don't work, we'll learn something. But sadly, when I look back, we've done it all terribly wrong, haven't we? Well, hindsight, we all know. And for me, the saddest is, I've always believed the talent in South Africa is just so rich, from little toddlers, youngsters that age. The talent's there. We've just not nurtured it right, and maybe looked after how it could be
Done better.
correct.
You've never wanted to be an agent?
Not really. Mate of mine's an agent, and what they live through. But I do help younger people. You know, if I see them, even at work, some of them, you know, you can see talent very quickly. It's and I've said to few families, keep an eye on that boy. You know. And one or two have come back and told me the kids are overseas studying and playing football.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. The football godfather.
Oh, I don't know.
Deshi, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming through, sitting and having a really good chat. It's good to see you, and hope to see you again soon.
Yes, thank you. It's lovely to see you, and I enjoyed this thoroughly.
I'm glad you did.
Thank you.
But I'm sure you and I can chat for days.
We could do.
And days and days.
Yeah.
Deshi Bhaktawer, living legend here at Omni Audio Africa, coming through to Real, Raw and Relatable with me, Romy Titus. I hope that you enjoyed that chat as much as I did.
Listen live now and on demand at omniaudio.africa.